My sentence is going to have a semicolon in it because I'm going to say, yes, he's going to die, semicolon, but I can't wait to see it. Why don't we quickly, since the Army-Navy game just happened, we're all sporting our Navy gear, and obviously it was not the greatest game. Navy won, but it looked like a battle of which team wanted to lose more.
Yeah, that was messy, and I also thought it started at 2:30, so I got home at 2:29, and Navy was already up. They didn't look like they were interested, honestly, at parts of it.
Yeah, I thought the first drive, I mean, I thought Horvath was keeping the ball way more than he should have, but they still went down and scored on that first drive. And then after that, it's like they got cocky and they thought it would be too easy. And Army was not having it.
Was it my imagination, or were the Army guys punching
Yeah,
at
I
the end of
think
every
I
play?
just
Like,
there's a
go
couple
ahead.
times yeah, there's a couple times I think looking uninterested. I definitely think that it's just the Army Navy game, the rivalry itself is it can make teams look like that. I mean, obviously they want to win. They came into the game wanting to win. I think early on it was easy for them, and they just thought it was going to be easy the whole game, and it wasn't. I think Army had a great game plan defensively, at least in the first half. A couple key turnovers. The turnover at the end of the first half where they got 3 points. Like, we were going to get at least three, and then they turned it around and
Mm-hmm.
got three from that. And seven,
Yeah,
I
it was
thought was
rough.
big. I thought it was pretty awesome in the second half to see, they took the field goal to go down 16-10, and then they had the drive, and they're on the 1 or 2 yard line, if even that. I mean, he just missed breaking the plane on the play before, and then he
Yeah,
fumbled,
1 inch line.
and then, 1 inch
Yeah,
line, and the
fourth and
fullback,
11.
right, he rolled 40, yeah, 46 rolls in, and he,
Shit.
Army almost recovered it, but he got his hand in, and then 22 recovered it. I thought that was a great hustle play, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the difference in the game because then we went for it on fourth down, scored, and then went up 17-16.
Yeah.
It just goes to show like the records don't matter, and it doesn't matter how good you think each team is. It's just a battle. I thought it was an awesome game to watch. I mean, obviously it's more fun when you win. So it's pretty cool.
I thought it was an inversion of last year when Army was a pretty solid favorite coming in, and then we just came out like with
Yeah.
a lot more energy and aggression. It seemed like, and this seemed like the inversion of that, and we got kind of lucky because that was a very weird, not weird, but it was that sequence of events where he got to the 1 inch line. That was the right call. He didn't break the plane, but man, that was about as close as you could be. Then fumble it
Mm-hmm.
back 10 yards. I was like, they're
Yeah.
not. This is going to be death when they don't get it, and then they get it a 10 yard touchdown on fourth and goal. Fun game, but like you said,
Yeah.
because we won.
It's a good thing I'm not a football coach because I would never go for it on fourth and goal from the 11 after that fumble play. And then they're just like,
I
yeah,
was
we'll just
surprised,
go for
Chelsea.
it. And
I was surprised. I thought they should
goal.
have kicked it and then kicked it off and then play defense. There's still 6 minutes to
Yeah.
go. I was
And they
surprised
had
those guys
plenty
the
of
call.
time. And then, yeah. And
Yeah,
even the fourth and one to seal the game at the end. And they got in the same formation. He
But
fumbled
the
on the
play,
goal line. But this time he
yeah,
handed it off
the play
instead of
before that
keeping
though,
it
right?
and
When
they got
he
it.
gets it, he gets popped by the linebacker and then he
Yeah. A
fumbles, but
double
then
fumble.
gets it back
yeah.
and then has the wherewithal to,
Yeah.
yeah, but to stretch it
Yep.
out and to get to the fourth and one.
Yeah, because
I thought
it
that
was
was,
fourth and like
again, I
a
mean,
foot.
it was not Horvath's best game, but he made plays
Yeah,
when he had
for
to,
sure.
and I thought he's a gamer, right? Again, like he didn't look great at certain times, but other times he made some big plays, and I think that was the ultimate decider in them in winning the game and getting a big win. So it was good to see.
Is Navy's coach now? Is he a guy who's going to be? Is he going to be upwardly mobile?
Newberry, I don't know. I haven't heard that anybody's looking at him, but it wouldn't shock me. He said that's two straight 10-win seasons, 10+ win seasons for Navy. That's, I think, the first time ever.
I don't know, but usually those in college, man, you have a couple of good seasons, and then would you consider Navy a mid-major right now? Is that? I mean, I guess they fall into that bucket, right?
Yeah, it's hard to categorize them though, right? Because it's not like there's no NIL money, no scholarships, no real prospect of playing pro football if you go to Navy. So it's guys that are,
It it
a little smaller than, your 6'4", 225 pocket passers, and but guys are super scrappy and hungry, and then they go on to serve in Afghanistan.
I think it's a good question,
Go ahead,
Chili. I
Gotcha.
think, he made his mark as a defensive coordinator. Yeah, I think he made his mark as a defensive coordinator. I mean, that's why he got promoted to the job as head coach. A lot of times the head coach will also continue to be a coordinator. And the bottom line is that the defense has not performed well this year. So I think he's a great leader. I just don't know if there's a reason for another university or another who's in the NFL and the franchise to say, hey, this is the kind of guy we want to hire. I just don't see that.
Is Horvath the best quarterback that we've had since we've been around the Naval Academy? He seems like it. He's thrown some of the best passes I've personally seen a Navy quarterback throw.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think the guy, who was the guy, remember when Navy won like 13 games in a row or something in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s? There was a quarterback they had then who was pretty good, but he was probably more of a runner anyway. Horvath might be a better passer than that guy was. I can't even remember his name though.
Hard time remembering. Not the guy who was going to be. They kept saying he's going to be president every. That was fairly recent. That was within the last 10 years, I would think. The guy who was going to be president, it would constantly say he's going to be president. So what do you think? You think the Packers are going to win tomorrow? I think the Broncos are fraudulent.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ever take it for granted, obviously, but you can certainly make a case. You can also make a case that the Packers are a little fraudulent when you look at the Carolina and Cleveland games. Like, how can that be the same team that beat the Bears? The team that lost to the Eagles, they just look terrible. And then you see these other teams go in, the Eagles look like garbage. They're getting their butts kicked. So.
Yeah.
But, all that matters is these last 4 games, man, you got to be playing your best football, and we'll see. Hopefully they can.
The 49ers have a legitimate shot at the number 1 seed. I don't think
Yeah,
they'll
they
get
do.
it, but I mean, they basically control their own destiny. I mean, it really.
They play the Bears in a couple weeks, right?
They play the Bears, in San Francisco. They have, they play Phillip Rivers, which is something I wanted us to talk about because it's like, what the. Come on, man. Are you serious? But yeah, I mean, they got a legitimate shot. I mean, I don't think they're any good, but I have another business school buddy of mine who's a Broncos fan, and we're constantly talking NFL stuff, and it's he's brought to my attention that I think every team is fraudulent. I think every team sucks because they all seem to have weaknesses. Because I've seen Green Bay look like dog shit in the aforementioned games, so I don't know who's for real. I think it's going to be a year where it's going to be like the Texans and somebody random. It could be the Packers though, because I think everybody's overhyping the Rams and the Seahawks.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, this might be Jeff Hafley's last year as defensive coordinator for the Packers because he's apparently getting a lot of interest for head coaching jobs, but I don't know. The defense has been good, but they've also had terrible moments too, but you could probably say that about any team's defense.
Well, let's go. We've been talking about this. Let me just point out that since the last time we talked, the Thunder have not lost. I was talking about 75-7. They might go 80-2. They don't lose. They don't even remotely come close. They blow everybody out. And they haven't even had their second best player most of the season. It's unbelievable. Like, it's really, really unbelievable. But not to belabor that, but can we finally talk about George Pickens? Because I have what I think is an incredible analogy for George Pickens. But I'll start with you guys. Gautra, I know we talked about this. We've talked about this offline before, but Jay, you're Jerry Jones. What do you do about Pickens' contract at the end of the year?
You got to sign him. He's their best receiver.
You got to sign him,
hands down.
Yeah, you got to sign him. Yeah, he's either going to get franchised or they're going to come up with a deal. I mean, and listen, I think, I'm biased because I'm a Cowboys fan, but he's obviously a mercurial dude. I mean, it's just, but I think I read a great article today by a guy who writes a lot of Cowboys articles, and he was like, and he's older, he's probably in his 60s, and he's like, back in the day, dude, you had to defend. If you wrote something, you'd walk into the locker room and a player could approach you and be like, that was a bogus or stupid article, or why were you writing that? And a lot of these guys today they hide behind, the internet and social media and whatnot. It's just frustrating. I think he didn't have the best game against Detroit, but he got beat up a lot. And I think it was a little bit overblown about lack of effort or not really caring about the game. I just think he's He's infinitely talented. To Jay's point, he's been their best receiver. He's been their best player really all season long. Dak's had a pretty good year for them, but he has been the way he plays, the way he moves. He is a remarkable receiver with a huge wingspan, ability to go up on 50-50 balls and make it 80-20. The probability of him coming down with it. So I think they're going to find a way to, unless he absolutely implodes over the last 4 games, they'll find a way to sign him to a contract, or they will franchise him and then try to figure something out after that.
So yeah, tell me, all right, Jay, you're going to sign him how? What's the dollar amount?
I don't know what their salary cap situation is. I don't follow the Cowboys closely enough, but if there's a way to get rid of CeeDee Lamb and use that money to sign Pickens, I'd do that in a heartbeat, because I like CeeDee Lamb as a player, but he seems like kind of a bad locker room guy, and I don't know if if they can win all that much with him.
So Gautreaux, how are you going to sign him?
It depends on, like, so if they franchise him, he comes in. If they franchise him, he comes in, I think, at like 28 and a half. And so, and then looking at some of the other top receivers and what they're making, Jefferson and CD and a couple other guys. I read another article a couple days ago was talking about that. It just kind of depends on what he's looking for. Ironically, his agent is Micah Parsons' agent, but apparently Micah's agent is actually a pretty professional dude, and they don't think it's actually there's going to be any negative repercussions, since he represented Micah and it didn't work out. So I just kind of think it depends on what Pickens is looking for. I mean, if he's asking for 34, 35, he's probably not going to get that. I don't think they're going to give that to him. But if he can come in below the top 2 or 3 guys and be comfortable with that, around that 28 to 29, I think the Cowboys will find a way to do it. They'll make it work. They'll restructure some other contracts, and they'll find the money.
So before I unveil what is sure to be an award-winning analogy, and that's coming, so just stay on the edge of your seats, that will be unveiled. I think the threat of the franchise tag is nothing anymore, because guys will just sit out. So it doesn't work anymore. I don't think that does much for you. And I don't know if you saw, but, Brandon Ayuk, they just put him on the quit the team list. And they got into a big, the 49ers had a hard time signing him. They ended up signing him to a $120 million deal. And he wasn't, I really like mercurial as a description of Pickens. I think I would have chosen rumored to be difficult or something. But, he's had that reputation since college, or he probably wouldn't have been a second round pick. But I think Pickens is going to ask for $40 million a year. He's going to ask for Jefferson type money, and I think the Cowboys have a history of giving into that type thing. So it's going to be incredible to watch. It's going to be cinema for the uninterested. It'll be quite interesting. But here's my analogy, and here's what I would do. And I know all of y'all have been waiting for this with bated breath. I don't know if you guys have ever dabbled in options, but for those who have, anyone who's ever sold a covered call, basically the Cowboys sold a covered call on Pickens by inheriting the last year of his deal. And then this happens a lot as a guy who's made a lot of covered call mistakes. A covered call, you buy NVIDIA at 100, you sell the right to sell it for 150 in a year for $5, and you're like, sweet. And then NVIDIA runs to $700 a share, and you've lost out on $550 a share of upside. I think that's kind of what happens when you bring a guy in for a one-year deal like this. And the 49ers saw a little bit with Sam Darnold, and why they signed Mac Jones to a 2-year deal. You can't recoup that surplus value on a 1-year deal if you bring somebody in and rehab them. So I think their best thing is see what they can get for a tag and trade. But if you sold a deep in the money covered call, you spend a lot of time and energy trying to recapture that missed upside, and it never works. So you gotta tag and trade. I saw a national columnist that said they can get a first round pick and a sign and trade. I don't buy that. I think his reputation as being tough to deal with will hurt him some, but I think he'll get $32 million or something like that. So
yeah.
But if I'm the Cowboys, I say thank you for the 1 year. You did awesome. You're great, and we're gonna recoup some of the. They sent a third and a fifth to get him. They'll recoup more than that. They'll get a second, probably minimum. That's what I would do. I don't think they will do that. I think they're gonna try to capture that value, and it is gonna be a fun one to watch from the outside.
I think it's a good analogy. Do you think, though, more so for NFL players, Pickens, than for actual covered calls? But the point is kind of to lock in X amount of value. you might be leaving Y amount of value on the table, but that's not known with 100% certainty. You know, for some super sophisticated, super wealthy trader who's going to sell covered calls and Nvidia or whatever, you're just pocketing money. Yeah, maybe not the most money you could pocket, but you're giving up risk in order to make a smaller amount of money. And
Well,
that's
it's
kind
just
of
about
in the NFL. It's, if they want to tag and trade Pickens, they've gotten their money's worth out of him for sure.
yeah, yeah, and that's exactly my point. You
Yes.
said
Yes.
with the time horizon, like this is the value we can get, and we did. But chasing that upside, I think is going to be tough because they're going to outbid themselves. Gosh,
I
are
just
you in
think it's
agreement that that's
comical how old dude. Listen, here's what I think. I think it's comical that old dudes like us judge the behavior of a 24-year-old who's literally in the spotlight every day of his professional career. When every one of us was 24, we were a train wreck. I mean, we were a mess, going out, having a good
fair
time.
enough?
Even though people looked at us and said, even though people were like, "Oh my God, he graduated from the Naval Academy and he's a submariner or an aviator or whatever." And it's like, I look at this young guy and I'm like, yes, is he the most mature? No. But let's pump the brakes on, man, I don't know if, like, he had one bad game out of, the 13 they played. He's had one game where you watch that Detroit game and you're like, hey, you can give a little more there, at least in my opinion as a fan. But there were times when CD was out, he was carrying that team. I mean, they're very average at 6-6-1. Dude, they'd be like 3-9-1 if it wasn't for him and his performance. So I do think that, and I'll be the first to admit, yeah, but you're also talking about investing 30 to 32 million per year in a guy who you're not quite sure you can trust. I get that. So I do think that if they listen, I trust the leadership. Everyone doesn't like Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones. Will McClay is genius. He would be a general manager on another football team if he didn't have loyalty to the Cowboys and they didn't pay him like GM money, which they pay him. So I trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Micah thing, they got beat up when they made that call. And you know what? It was probably the right call. Now time will tell, but if we would have signed Micah, we wouldn't have been able to do anything. And we probably would definitely finish below 500 this year and then have no additional picks moving forward. So I do think the leadership of the team deserves some credit, and they've made some good decisions. They've made some bad decisions. Kenneth Murray from the Titans, that wasn't a good pickup. Now, I mean, that guy gets beat up pretty good each game. Can't really cover much. Not usually in a very good position as a linebacker, which is problematic when people are running down your throat. But they've done enough, in my opinion, for me to say they're in the room every single day as subject matter experts. Listen, if someone ever came in and told me how to fly a helicopter who never flew before, I'd be like, hey, listen, pump the brakes, dude. Like, sit back and enjoy the ride because I got this, right? So I feel like, I think that, they do. Yes, sir. Absolutely. They also have a cyclic and a collective, a little different than a jet and a submarine, but definitely fun. So I want to wait and see how it plays out. To your point, I think it's going to be interesting to watch. And if they sign him, I trust them. And if they don't, then he's going to move on, go somewhere else, and hopefully we get something in return that we can use moving forward in the draft or as trade capital.
So you're in at 32 million a year.
I think that's probably a little too high. But if they can get them, if they can, backload it, I mean, I would be open to that because honestly, they need a little flexibility. I think over the next couple of years, if they end up signing him, I do think they have a little bit of a window over the next couple of years to maybe do something because they're relatively young, not as young as the pack, but young in general. And so I think they have a chance to do something special. But that's going to handcuff them if it's all front loaded and they don't have any flexibility. Again, I'm on me, Billy. I'm an art guy, not a science guy, so I don't really know the numbers as well as those guys do. But certainly, I think they need a little flexibility over these next couple of years to make it work.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be very interesting to see it play out. We can come back to this. We can come back to this in a year. Well, it won't be a year and however many months, but I think his number is going to be significantly north of 32. And as a team with suddenly a big hole at wide receiver that has suddenly a surplus of $30 million a year, I find Pickens to be too risky. I would not want the 49ers to sign him. But they have been massively burned by wide receiver personalities fairly recently. So
Yeah.
I would think they won't be shopping in the aisle at all. But okay, we'll put a pin in this. This might be an episode on its own. This might be a little Pickens episode. It's probably what, 8 minutes or 10 minutes or something. One more NFL topic, but this will be a short. And I'd say give me. I'm not going to prep you, and I haven't really thought about it myself too much, but. Give me one sentence. I'll start this one since I'm giving you no time to prepare. One sentence on your reaction to Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement on the eve of Hall of Fame eligibility to start a game against the Seahawks, I think in Seattle. We'll go ahead. My sentence is he's fucking gonna die.
My sentence is going to have a semicolon in it because I'm going to say, yes, he's fucking going to die, semicolon, but I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to see it. Everybody wants to see it. I mean, it just never happened before. I just read that Steve DeBerg took 5 years off and then backed up was a backup on the Falcons in '98, and then he played a game. But at the end of the year, this is a week. A guy who's been out of the NFL for 5 years and he's starting after a week. It's unprecedented stuff. Gautreaux, what do you got?
You know, brother, again, I've been burned a lot over, 54 years. You guys got me, Chile? Yeah. So, I'd say this, we're in our 50s, right? So probably legitimately a fan for 45 years of my life when I first remember watching the Cowboys. And this is what I'd say. I've been burned a lot about making opinions about what I think is right or wrong. This is what I know. When the guy was playing, he was a gamer. He played a AFC Championship game with a torn ACL against the Patriots in the cold. And I think that those guys, the professional athletes, are just different than us. And while I think on the surface it looks pretty shady and scary for him as a 44-year-old, it wouldn't surprise me if he played and got hammered, and it wouldn't surprise me if he rolled up and was 18 for 26 for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks, which in today's NFL, I think a lot of teams are going to take. So it wouldn't surprise me a bit, and I'm cheering for him. I think I've always liked watching him play because I thought he was very open and honest and transparent, and obviously a family guy. I think he's got great, a moral code and values. And so I'm actually hoping that he doesn't leave on a stretcher or get hurt to the point where, he's done for the season. I'm hopeful he goes out and he shows that, this is what makes him different.
Well,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because obviously Jonathan Taylor, he's the league MVP as far as I'm concerned, but teams that play the Colts are going to be like, well, let's just sell out to stop Taylor and make Phillip Rivers beat us. So is that going to mean he's actually going to be slinging the ball a lot? Or are they just going to go, you know what, he's 47 or whatever. Let's just hand it off to Taylor anyway.
Well,
44, Schulte. He's 44. Yeah, he's 44.
I think you might have missed the last 4 weeks, Jay, because teams adopted that strategy for the last month. So they've lost 3 of 4, and Taylor hasn't had 100 yards, I don't think, in any of those games. They decided let Daniel Jones beat us. So, it's going to be interesting. He looks like he's never been a guy who relied on athleticism, so he'll get the ball out quick. But, still 5 years without playing. I just don't know. And it definitely looks like I could beat him in any kind of foot race right now at any distance. You could 10-yard dash, 40-yard dash, a mile, 10 miles. He looks like he's chubbed up a little bit. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that. It's going to be fun to watch, but let's hope he doesn't die.
I would say this. Don't forget this though, Chili. I'd say this too. I think that, he's remained close to the head coach, right? Steichen, right? And they've stayed in contact. I think that's what facilitated him. Yeah. I think that's what facilitated him being comfortable going back to the Colts. And don't forget this. Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates were an unbelievable connection. Quick, short passing game, getting Antonio the ball, athletic, letting him make plays. Warren is a hell of a rookie tight end for the Colts. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a heavy dosage. So they'll rely on Taylor. Even if they're not getting yards, they'll still hand the ball off and commit to the run. And then I think they're going to be looking for Warren and get quick release. 3-step, maybe 5-step every once in a while, getting into Warren and trying to find a couple quick hitters with the receivers. And I think that's what they'll be trying to do. And obviously he's adept at doing it because he did it with Gates.
That's a great point. I totally forgot about that. And I wanted to switch to another topic, but you reminded me of something else that is just mind-boggling to me. I think NFL coaches they're smart guys, they work a lot, but man, oh man, sometimes the dumbest shit in the world comes up. And 2 weeks ago, I saw multiple teams run fourth down plays with rookie tight ends playing quarterback. And I think both times they fumbled.
Playing quarterback, yeah.
Yeah, playing quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And like, it didn't make any sense. The Browns did it with Harold Fannin, and it was like, I don't know what's going on. And some of these teams, they just, even like Seattle was doing this in the first year. It was hilarious. They would have Darnold. Darnold would throw, 8 straight completions, 30 yards a pick. And then they bring in Jalen Milroe for some 3rd and 1, and he would fumble. He fumbled or turned it over every single time. Why are they doing this stuff? Who decided rookie tight ends are playing quarterback and doing tush pushes? Doesn't make any sense.
I tell you, another thing that is pretty interesting is
I don't know, brother.
You look at the end of that Raiders game. You have a 7.5 point spread, and the Raiders are down 10. There's like 30 seconds left. Like, let's kick a field goal. Why not?
Yeah.
Talking about, last time we talked about the gambling implications, and that's obviously a bit of a red flag, but
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. What were you going to say?
Yeah.
All right.
No, I was like, to your point about the tight ends taking the 4th down snap. I think sometimes the coaches try to get too cute, and I think in theory, when they write it down, they're like, "This is going to be great," and then as the play is about to unfold, they're like, "I wonder if we should have done something different." It's just classic.
I wonder how many quarterback reps this guy's taken during the week. Probably 0.
I know. Mm-hmm.
The first kind of professional topic. I don't know if you guys. I love Reddit. I don't know if you guys use Reddit much, but Reddit is fucking unbelievable. And
Little bit.
Like anything you're interested in, there's a Reddit for it. So like it's amazing. But I get fed all kinds of random subreddits and learn some ridiculous stuff. But there's one called LinkedIn Lunatics. Jay, have you ever seen LinkedIn Lunatics?
No, but I can only imagine.
It's a subculture of folks who go on LinkedIn and type posts on LinkedIn about how great their life is, how hard they work and stuff. And sometimes it's very difficult to determine if it's satire or not, and sometimes it is satire, but it's always stuff like, I get up every day at 3 a.m. and I make a protein shake, and then I read the dictionary or something. It's some ridiculous litany.
Encyclopedia.
Yeah, they have stuff there. So on LinkedIn, people go in and it's basically, for one, I've never thought about posting on LinkedIn. You posted on LinkedIn though, because I spent, I would say, 30 minutes pondering, mocking your post on LinkedIn, because it said transitioning naval officer on it. And I spent probably more than 30 minutes, because I was going to send a group text to everybody with the New York Post's headline after they saw that, because transitioning naval officer could mean multiple things. I was trying to think of the ultimate post headline, something like "Macho Carrier Commander becomes Dainty Miss" or whatever, But I could not come up with my perfect headline that would capture transitioning Navy officer. But I thought about it a lot. So I know you've been on, but I've never once thought about posting on there. But people would go in and post their random shit, and So I was thinking, like, and I may have, you guys might not have this, so this might be a non-issue, but I have an unlimited amount of this. What about the opposite? Can you think of something you sucked at in your past or current careers that you that's worth talking about? Because everybody wants to talk about their successes, but I think that their shortcomings are funnier. What about I'm trying to get to a specific thing. I'll tell you I have a lot of these. So like as you guys know, I was the last ranked midshipman on our summer cruise, which is tough to be ranked last out of 30 midshipmen.
Not that hard.
Yeah, well, you couldn't do it. But like when I was a summer associate in investment banking, I was fucking clueless. I had no idea what I was doing, and it was a really weird time to be in banking, because most of the people I was working with were about to be laid off, and like I couldn't do really. I had I had good grades in business school, but once I got the internship, I let my teammates on all the projects do the work. And I got there, I was like, I don't fucking know how to build a model. And so I was like way behind. And it took me years to actually catch up from that, because once I got my full-time job, I really had a lot of catching up to do. And that's, I mean, God, the Navy. I mean, in the Navy, submarining. Oh my God, I have a lot of shortcomings. Is what I guess I'm getting at. Gotro, anything for you? Flight school. Was there anything you all sucked at flight school? Like, I don't know how that stuff goes.
Not flights. I mean, flight school was a lot of the normal stuff. Just you'd struggle from time to time on a flight, or doing a particular maneuver, whatever it may be. But it wasn't unusual. You weren't necessarily like the one and only that would struggle. I would say honestly, as I transitioned from a junior officer into lieutenant commander, department head type, and then more senior at the XOCO level, and then major command level, and even sequential command level, you know Microsoft Excel became a big deal. But by the time it really became a big deal and people were using it, I was already pretty senior, so I never had to do it. I just had people to do it for me. And I'd be like, hey, they'd be like, hey, Captain, I did this, and Skipper, I did this. I'm like, hey, great, thanks. I can use that. Didn't really need to edit it. It was just used for me to chew on and to consider whatever the point the person was trying to make. And then I got, when I retired in 24 and I started working for ADS, which I love, my boss was like, hey, why don't you go ahead and take a look at that, take a look at the dashboard and pull some info from that, and, maybe do a pivot table and, see, and I'm like, boss, I got no idea what you're talking about right now. I mean, literally, I can't do one thing that you're talking about. And so that's been very humbling. The cool thing is my company, they actually have a class that you can take for like 3 days that specifically, you really zones in on like how to do Microsoft Excel, some of the tricks it can use with the keyboard, stuff like that. So it's actually it's been really fun to kind of jump in. And I actually am one of the few people that's taken the course twice now, because I'm like, the first time wasn't enough and I needed to do it a second time. And so I can see how practical it is, and the kind of information that you can kind of put together and produce literally in 10 or 15 minutes. And so that's been very rewarding, because at first I was like, I am completely lost in being able to do this.
Well, that may make the list of things that I'm better than you at may be one now, because I used Excel a lot. I will tell you this, the Alt EST, that's copy format. That's what you need, man. If you got a cell that you want to copy the format, Alt EST. That's all you need. Boom. And also,
well, I appreciate that, brother. I'm constantly trying to build my my repertoire in being able to actually do Microsoft Excel efficiently and effectively. So I appreciate that insight.
in banking, they used to take analysts, they used to take their mouse, and so they'd have to learn how to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't quite that bad for associates, but ended up being a necessary thing to learn all the shortcuts. But if you switch to a Mac, the shortcuts are different, and it sucks. Don't ever.
Yeah.
Once you learn,
I won't be doing that.
switch.
Yeah. I won't be doing
Second
that.
that, yeah, we have a bunch of Macs at home, and it drives me insane because I mean, I use Word way more than I use Excel, and I've gotten to the point where Word on a PC, I don't need a mouse because everything, I know all the keyboard shortcuts, and it's so much faster. And then I come home and, my wife wants me to look at something on her Mac, and I'm like, I can't do this. And then it's a laptop with a, touchpad, and it's just, you realize how inefficient that is.
Yeah. Well, you probably use so. This is another thing that I was sucked at. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you redlined a document, or maybe you dealt with redlined documents in the Navy? But it was new to me when I first got to banking. I was like, what the hell are all these lines in here? What's all this stuff marked out for? And I was like, I was completely messing up the document by editing it. I would turn off the editing, and then I would fix it and send it back. And invariably it was from an attorney, doing some drafting session. They'd be like, what the fuck is going on, dude?
That's all I do. That's my job now. And that, the one thing that drove me nuts is there are no like keyboard commands to do a lot of the editing stuff, track changes. And so, but you can download a macro that you download this macro to your template file, your docx file, and then you go in and assign your own command. So I have it all set up. So somebody sends me a a document that's got a bunch of red lines, and I have all like on the keyboard, I can just advance to the next one, accept it, reject it, or the ultimate is to stead it. So like if they added a bunch of language, you disagree with it, so you want to delete it, but you don't want to just delete it. You got to accept it, then delete it so that it shows that it's redlined out so that they can see that you made that change. And I can do that with one keyboard command. And so that saves me over the last 15 years. That's probably saved me like 15 days worth of work going through.
That's worth it right there.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I didn't know we'd have. That's another hashtag for us. Microsoft Office tips. We're hot. We're gonna be hot in that.
That's what
segment.
I thought we were getting into with this podcast was
Yeah.
stuff.
Love you guys. Have a good Saturday night. Talk to y'all later.
Love you too, buddy.
All
Hey,
right,
good luck
go
to your
Navy. Love you
team.
guys.
Good luck to your teams tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Cowboys
you.
play early?
No, Sunday night, brother. They got Minnesota at home.
Okay, that'll be an interesting one. Who knows with Minnesota?
Minnesota looked really good at home. They got this is crazy, right? They got shut out. It was like what 26-0 that game. Then they came back and they shut out Washington last week at home.
Right.
And McCarthy looked pretty good actually. So I'm not really sure what to expect. Dallas does play better at home. I expect them to win, but the spread's 5.5, so I'm not sure if they're going to cover that.
Yeah.
Wow,
O'Connell's
okay.
a good coach, man. He'll have something good dialed up for.
100%. And Flores is a great D coordinator. I think they're going to bring the house against Dak. The one good thing is Dak actually is pretty good against the blitz. So if they bring it, I think Pickens is going to be motivated tomorrow, right? I think and CD's playing after the concussion. So I expect them to be able to put up some points. So I expect them to get the win. That'd be an interesting topic too, Chili, about, 4 games ago, Cowboys went out. Is there any chance to win the division with the Eagles? Because the Eagles have to lose they'd have to lose at least 2 of the 4.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and they have Oakland or Las Vegas tomorrow. So they should win that. But then they play Washington twice.
Yeah, so
And then in between the Washington games, they play Buffalo at Buffalo. So I expect them to lose that game. And, can Washington pull one of those crazy, upsets with Marcus Mariota
Probably playing QB.
I have a buddy who's a Commanders fan, and man, I follow the Commanders a little bit. They have Adam Peters as their GM, and he came from the Niners. They're a train wreck. They're going to get blown out, both of those Eagles games, and it sucks because listen, I looked at the Eagles schedule and I was like, I want them to get caught, but the Raiders and the Commanders twice to end the season. Now you can't blame the schedule guys because the Commanders were good last year, but still, it's just too soft, I think. But I hope, but
Listen, something to think about tomorrow before the game, going into the game. A little bit of insight for you guys if you hadn't seen this nugget. Geno's not playing for the Raiders. Kenny Pickett is starting. And the Eagles got rid of Kenny Pickett. And so interesting to see, sometimes those revenge games, dude, guys get pissed and they get fired up.
Kenny Pickett revenge game.
They lead their team. Hey, come on, Schulte.
Hey, let me see the straws you're grasping at, dude, because they're not. they're substantial. That's but hey, I think everybody would like to see the Eagles, lose because we're not big fans, but that ending schedule could not be softer. I think Washington's checked out.
I think they win the division. I think, but it'll be fun to watch. So we'll see.
Yeah, but
all right,
okay, all right, fellas, have a good night. We'll talk to you.
Hey,
later.
I love you guys.
Love you.
Love you guys too. See ya.
Peace.